We were just working on our drinking game for the State of the Union address. But you see, if you decide to watch it at all, at least you get to do it from home, and you can pass out or just turn it off right there at home. Your poor Congresswoman, Harriet Hageman, has to be there in person to watch the whole thing. And Harriet, I assume you've started drinking already.
Well, I have some other work I have to do today, so perhaps that wouldn't be the best stuff.
Yeah, you got AIDS. They can start drinking for you. Look, this has really got to be difficult to do. I mean, just to be very serious about it, to sit there and listen to this president, not just with what you know he's going to say, what you know he's going to misrepresent, but for that matter, everybody's going to be curious as to how he's going to make it through the whole thing in his current condition. So how are you going to address this? Just sit there quietly?
So, Glenn, a couple of things. I am not going tonight. I have some other commitments that I have. So that's one thing, but I will watch it.
All right.
And later I will watch it. But one of the things that I have been saying for the last couple of days is we need to compare how much he has failed just since last year. How much worse he is. I mean, watching him walk, watch him attempting to engage. He's even a completely different man than he was a year ago. And a year ago, we knew it was bad. So I was there a year ago, and he walks just exactly and speaks just exactly as you would expect someone who is suffering from cognitive decline.
Mm-hmm. I expect in order to help him make it through the speech, there's at the end of it, look around the bottom of his where he's standing. There's going to be like a dozen Red Bull drinks that he just chugged in order to keep up enough. Now, I know we're going to have to watch out for things that are just not going to be true. And I do want to address energy in general in the United States and in Wyoming, because that's going to be a big topic for me.
It's a big topic for all of us. We're just doing everything we possibly can to push back against the incredibly horrible policies that this administration is pursuing. And I was visiting with some folks from Phillips 66 yesterday, and the point that I made is, I know that you guys are going through some really rough times because of this administration. But what you have to do, recognize what happened in Germany. At least when they decided to go down this incredibly horrible Green New Deal road, they did not tear out the infrastructure. They did not destroy their coal-fired power plants. They did not do that. So this winter, when they had to put those back online, they were available. What you're seeing with this administration is like with the dam that they want to remove on the Klamath River as an example. Mm-hmm. That is turning into an environmental disaster, the likes of which nobody could have possibly even imagined, in addition to which that is the base load. That is the reliable energy for the entire northwestern United States, including Jackson, Wyoming. And taking out those dams, we'll never get them built again. And that's why we've got to protect the infrastructure, and we have to protect our company.
What I find is going to be really interesting and amusing to watch is when the president gets to immigration, there's two things happening at the same time. First off, there is no immigration problem. And second off, the immigration problem is all the fault of you Republicans.
Well, my response to that is read H.R. 2, make the Senate pass it, sign it into law, and we can actually make that statement come true.
Yeah.
We passed H.R. 2. We passed the very best border security bill in Congress's history. He and the Senate have refused to address it. What they tried to come up with and ram down our throats a couple of weeks ago was amnesty. It was not a border security bill. It allowed between 5,000 and 8,500 illegals to cross the border every day. And if the president determined that wasn't enough, he could actually unilaterally, with an executive order, increase that number to infinity. And then we find out this week that he has flown into our country at our expense, mostly from South and Central America, almost 350,000 illegals so that they don't even have to bother walking to the border.
In the meantime, we have budget issues like I've never seen. We got really mad when Obama was entering office, and he finished up the deal that Bush had started with borrowing nearly $1 trillion from the loan sharks in China. And that started the Tea Party movement, which back then I was actually part of the Tea Party movement. But since this president has been in office, I have never in my life seen spending like this, and yet he tries to make the case that he's actually reduced the deficit.
Well, that's not true. And in fact, our interest rates are now, our interest is now exceeding what we spend on the military. It's over $1 trillion a year is what we're spending on just interest alone. We are just a couple of months ago, we were at we moved into $34 trillion. Now we're bumping up against $35 trillion in debt. But I'm not very pleased with what happened yesterday, and that was a budget bill that passed with bipartisan support. And what it does is it continues the same horrible level of spending. There is very little by way of cuts. And I cannot figure out for the life of me why my fellow Republicans do not recognize that we have to cut spending. And we don't have to cut spending just because of the enormous debt, although that's one of the important reasons. We're really affecting the livelihoods and the standard of living for our children and grandchildren. We need to cut spending because we need to start starving these agencies. The spending is associated with the Department of Ag and the Department of Interior and the SEC and the Federal Trade Commission. We need to cut spending because we need to rein in these agencies. And that's the part that is just mystifying me, is that some of my fellow Republicans think, well, that's just their budget. That's what we need to spend. No, we have the power of the purse. I would cut everything across the board 10 to 20%. I really would. And that includes the military. I would vote to cut the military. When we have a military that cannot pass an audit and has not been able to since 2018, they're spending massive amounts of money on things that have nothing to do with national security, and we need to start holding them accountable.
My theory and don't take these numbers as, honest, hard numbers. I'm using them for sake of argument. If the military got its spending under control and spent responsibly, we could probably cut their budget by about a third and keep a good military like the size and power that we need.
Well, I think that it would be better. I think it would be better because what they're doing now is they're spending so much of their time and effort on things that none of us want. Right. Training about white rage, bringing in drag queens, allowing their soldiers to dress, men to dress as women and women to dress as men, focusing on all of this stuff that has nothing to do with military capability or readiness. So I actually think budget cuts would be and target them. Don't target our soldiers. I want to protect our soldiers. I support our soldiers. But the brass back here in Washington D.C., they have become very, very, very corrupt, and they are pursuing radical ideology and agendas that have nothing to do with national security. Those are the programs we cut. We go into each one of these budgets, we take out all of the DEI stuff. We go into these budgets, we take out all of the money that they're using to transport people for abortions. All of these things, we take that money out. That's the way you responsibly budget.
I'm talking to your Wyoming Congresswoman, Harriet Hageman. So I go back real quick to the spending bill that just passed. What got me was, and I'm still going through it, the amount of ridiculous pork spending from both parties.
I agree. That's why I voted against it. I agree. We've got to stop this. We don't want to empower the federal government more. We want to take power away from the federal government. We do that by cutting the budgets of each of these individual agencies. So we did 6 appropriations bills yesterday in one appropriation bill, in one minibus. And that is not the way that we promised the American people we would budget. It is allowing these agencies to continuously ramp up more and more nonsense in terms of the policies they're pursuing. And we just can't keep spending this way. Okay.
When's the next time you're going to be back in Wyoming?
I will be back in Wyoming at the end of this month. I know I'm coming in the week before Easter.
Okay.
So I was just home this past weekend and the weekend before that. But we're in session back on Monday. So I'm not coming home this weekend. I'm going to actually do things like laundry, dry cleaning, and clean my house.
Right.
My condo, a few things like that.
Okay.
So I'll be home for Easter.
So you've not reached the level yet where you have people to do that for you?
I doubt that will ever happen.
No, thank God, no. All right. Harriet, anytime you want to come on the program. And if you're ever in town when I'm on the air, I'd love to have you here in person.
Thanks, Glenn. I'll tell my team and make sure that we get that on the calendar because I'd love to come in and sit down and visit with you.
That sounds perfect. Thank you, Harriet. 7:16 is the time. Wake up, Wyoming.